Hi, Arun, and welcome to Airhex FM.
Hey, I'm super happy to be here.
Yeah, the last time we had a chat, you know when it was?
Oh my God. Must be like 2 decades ago, something like that. Weird.
Yeah, almost. Okay, the last time we saw each other was the Kubernetes conference in Florida.
Oh, yeah.
With Star Wars experience.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, this one. And then before was 2 decades again. And we had a chat about the Docker on my channel. So it's like, let's talk about Docker.
That
and we
I
had
remember.
This was a screencast about what is Docker, why it's important for microservices.
And that I remember very clearly because that literally was in the very early days of containers, Docker, microservices, all of that. And how do the two connect? And that's when I just got excited about okay, this is a real deal. So yeah, I remember that very well.
Very good. But now back to the serious stuff. What was your first computer?
That was 386. It was a 4 MB RAM.
Wow, they are that young. I think you are way older than me, but you started like
Yeah,
that's cool.
4 MB RAM, 200 MB hard disk, something like that. Yeah, it was my first computer.
And this was your first computer you owned or you used actually?
Both ways, because back when I was doing masters is when I first touched the computers. And even in the department, we had machines like that in the Department of Computer Science where I was. And so I ended up buying a similar machine for myself back in the day from gray market, so to say, because if you buy it from a commercial manufacturer, they were super expensive. So I kind of assembled that machine and got that going. And it was pretty geeky experience.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. So I had, I think, but my true PC, the first one was Pentium 66. But before that, I had a long time ago, it was like a gap, but I started with ZX Spectrum. So I had a small, so I actually stunned that you didn't have, like, how to call it, what was ZX Spectrum? Not a personal computer, rather than a toy computer, maybe.
Yeah.
No experiences with C64, ZX Spectrum, nothing?
No. I just jumped straight into Pentium 386. Prior to that...
So what you did, you spent time on surfing on the beaches or what? As a kid?
Well, so I was about to comment that because my undergrad was in electronics. And in electronics, we did play around with the 8086 chips, on a motherboard. So we would play around, muck around with those simple LED lights. Yeah. But that was about it. When I got into the masters for computers, I was like, oh, dang it. I got into masters. Now I need to learn about computers. And that's sort of how the whole thing started.
Yeah, this is the really fascinating story because, that you started, with building a computer basically, and then it was excited to getting one. So cool one.
Yeah. No, I'm very excited.
What you did with the computer? What is your first action? Usually, my guests telling me they are playing games. I guess in your case, you did something serious. So I'm already curious.
No. Very, very much, the first thing was, okay, and this is what friends teach you, right? That you got a computer, this computer can play BASIC, and in the BASIC, the first thing you do is you play the game of Snake.
Okay.
So I spent countless hours playing Snake, configuring my modem at that point of time, jumping onto the bulletin boards, following the chats, participating in the rooms. So that's sort of where I spent a lot of time. And of course, the college also needed some Pascal work to be done. So I did a bit of a Pascal coding on that, C coding on that. So I enjoyed that part of it for sure.
Yeah, and you enjoyed that. And what was, so you learned C, Pascal, and then what was the next language?
COBOL. So I think C, Pascal, and COBOL is what I learned in the early college days. And then after college, when I graduated out of college, right about then is when Java was launched. So my first job really required me to play in Java.
Wow.
And even my internship during masters, I played a little bit with Java because this was an early 96 time frame. Java was brand new that time. It's like, oh, what is this cool language?
But how you got hold on Java? Someone mentioned that because, it was like a parallel world, right? If you did something C++ and Java, Usually it happens if you had Sun hardware. There was the link because someone mentioned Java, and this was what happened, right?
Well, with Java, early on, it was about that Vora concept, right? Once run anywhere kind of a thing from the very beginning itself. So I think I was working at this government organization back in Delhi, and those computers were pretty powerful. So that's where I get to at least try my simple ping pong games, Hello World with Java. That what is this thing about? And then as soon as I joined in, my boss said, hey, here is this applet you need to make. And that applet needs to talk to our database and get that party going. I was like, oh, whoa, from the ping pong game, how do I figure out the JDBC connection, applet sandbox, and all those things? So that was quite an interesting experience, frankly.
Yeah, you're right. The applets in JDBC. This was like how to build a fat client, right? So back then it was because the course was still, so you were only able to connect. I remember the servers from which you were loaded, right? This was the first, and then what I did something similar. I bridged JDBC with RMI. This was the first idea that there was like kind of I have remote procedure call and JDBC was on the server.
Well, and that's the funny part because, after my first couple of jobs for a short time, then I applied, I came to US, and in the US, I applied to sun.com/jobs, and my then manager at that point of time called me that, hey, Arun, would you like for the JDK team? I was like, the JDK team? So wow. Yeah, come work for us. And then I got interviewed. My first job was actually RMI Corba test engineer. So I'm intimately familiar with the internals of RMI Corba, IDLJ compiler, RMI-C compiler, how RMI works over JRMP or IIOP. So all of that was intricate level of details, which was my daily life back at Sun. So, I've lived that time quite well.
I didn't know that. I thought, you are like a marketing guy selling GlassFish back then, But I had no idea that you worked for the JDK team back then, I think.
Oh, gosh, yeah, no. I did the RMI Corba testing deep. I used to read the specs quite intently. What does the orb do? Where does POA fit in? All of that concept.
Portable object adapter. Exactly.
I'm glad you remember that. Yeah, exactly. So that's something I used to kind of geek out every day with the people who were building the Corba stack in JDK at that point of time. So that was quite an exciting experience. And then from there, when I joined Sun, the first gig really was, we are doing this J2EE thing. And there was no 1.0 because 1.0 got delayed. So we did, first release was 1.2. So I joined, March.
But back to Corba and RMI, because this is an interesting experience first. Unpopular opinion, but I really like RMI. So RMI was just great. You remember naming lookup, and you had an interface, and you got the implementation of the interface back, which was dynamic proxy, and you were done. So this was the easiest possible way to have remote procedure call. Still great. And why it's relevant? Because in JavaScript space right now, they found, about remote procedure call, and they are really excited about procedure call, which for me is funny because back then they said, okay, remote procedure call is binary. It is not like business-like. You're just invoking methods. 10 years later, just used to know REST and HTTP, remember the hysteria, and now we have it. And the JavaScript people are no more that excited about REST. They tried, the GraphQL. So, okay, it is also complicated. And now full circle. And now they found about RMI. And I say, okay, that is actually cool. If I kept going, with RMI, all the 20 years, now I will be back in the hype cycle again, right? So this is interesting. And Corba, back to Corba, I like also Corba, but the problem is not as convenient as RMI from the developer perspective. There's too many steps. You had to look up the naming service, then you can call the backend. But what's also fascinating, this gRPC gets really popular, And for me, it looks like Corba. So this is actually strange, So that's actually, if you rename things and do a little bit, a different website around that, it becomes popular.
Well, that's the one way to put it. But I think if I remember correctly, at that point of time, for example, we were using RMI over IIOP, and that would give us some level of language interoperability because RMI JRMP was exclusively Java. Then you give RMI IIOP, and IIOP was language independent, so you could talk to other languages that could understand the IIOP protocol, and that's the advantage that Corba also gave you, right? That when you do RMI IIOP, the programming protocol is RMI, but on the wire protocol was IIOP. So I think that was a big advantage and how it allowed you to interoperate with other languages. And I think I remember writing simple C code even at that point of time that, okay, let me write a C IIOP server and see how that works. Because end of the day, the thing that we were striving heavily on is how do we make Java work out of the box with other languages that exist. Because end of the day, customer is going to download. So customer empathy is critical over there, right? So you download Java, you download C, you write applications in that. So one of the big things that we did, but even back, even during J2E, Java EE days, is we did app-centric testing because we were thinking about how the developers are going to think about the application. And then we write those applications and then make sure they are working. And in the process, as a Corba RMI test engineer, we'll find out, these are the simple RMI IIOP bugs or Corba bugs that are in the stack, and then file those bugs to make sure there's providing out-of-the-box streamlined developer experience for the customer.
Yeah, and they were actually great times. If you think about this was absolutely, it worked. So I used this all the time. In most cases, was not necessary. So what I thought back then, I remember is, okay, why we need a Corba in between if Java's everywhere, In my projects, there was Java, 100% Java. So there was no C in place. So, okay, come on with Corba. We can just use RMI. It would be way better. And there were servers, Orion server back then, which were RMI-based. And then they had to use Corba because of the J2E standard. But maybe it was, too compatible back then. I would say if we would make, RMI more convenient, even more convenient, because I remember there are some scalability problems with garbage collection, back then with RMI, because it had, to poll the server, I'm alive. But we could actually invert that. So there would be inversion of control could also work. We could learn from Genie. You remember Genie actually?
Oh my God. Yeah, very well do. I think one of the things that I miss about Sun is, not miss rather, it's my pet peeve, that Sun had this technology curve, technology arc before anybody else in the industry could think of. We had this Genie, we had this RMI IIOP, we had SunGrid way back in 2006. This is right about the time when AWS was coming up. Yeah, exactly. So this was, I remember back in the Sun campuses in Santa Clara, we were talking about $1 an hour of computing. We just couldn't execute on that part of it. So I think that was, otherwise Sun would have been a very different story. Today absolutely. Oracle has acquired Sun, but who knows what it would have been, if Sun would have gone full force on that route.
Yeah, and SunGrid was the first cloud attempt. It was a little, from the convenience perspective, I remember, because it was a little bit strange because you had to submit a zip. And I said, come on, zip. Yeah. Why not an ear? No, if you would submit an application server business logic, it would be serverless. 20 years before serverless even occurred. So for me, it was like I say, hey, come on, Sun. Now we have everything. Why have to ship everything? We could just ship the business application. Now we are talking.
Correct.
And this would be before App Engine, before anything else. And they just didn't got the last mile. So the last mile was always missing. Yeah. So this was sad story. And maybe there was too much fight between departments inside Sun. So the SunGrid didn't want it to work together with J2E department, whatever. So this is what I can imagine back then, because in one part of time it happened, and you were also aware of that. So what I found out at GlassFish, there was a GMS provider, and at the same time they had a department at Sun Microsystem which worked on gaming, real-time gaming. And they also had started to implement a messaging service. And I asked them, why not on GlassFish? And they could, because the GMS is not scalable. It's like, what do you mean the GMS is not scalable? It's just an API. I mean, an interface is as scalable as an interface can be. I mean, who cares? And they just didn't want it to use. They wanted to implement their own solution. So this was politics a little bit as well. Yeah.
And I've seen that NIH syndrome, over the last 25 odd years. I've moved around multiple companies. And I've seen that NIH syndrome so prominent that, you know what? I didn't invent it, so I can't trust that solution. I'm going to create my own because I think we can do it better. We are different. We are a snowflake. That's usually never the case.
Exactly.
80% of your needs can usually be met by other person's project. If you put 20% effort, you can only make it bigger. And that's sort of the open source ethos in general, that don't start something of your own. If you can get 80% done, build on top of that, add your few features into that project and make the overall project much bigger. So that's a big challenge, but that's nothing about technology. That's frankly all about humans.
Yeah. And for me, Git is even a step further. So what the company does is one thing, but what I'm interested in is a kind of a standard. If J2E, servlets, whatever, this was for me a standard. And I say, okay, I will never accept a proprietary solution if servlets are in place, for instance. Why I should use something strange? If servlet is clearly documented, everyone knows servlets, so just go with servlets and provide a layer on top of that. And if this is not enough, try to extend servlets. So at least send an email and say, okay, this is at least you can do. But I think outside of companies, so like consultants, for them, this is boring. As a consultant, you always try to do something which is unique to show off. Because right now, I would, for instance, absolutely go to conference and tell about servlets because almost forgotten. But usually you are searching a new language or whatever, some space technology to show off at conferences, which is a little bit of problem as well, right?
Well, and I think that's the dichotomy between you as a consultant versus you as a conference speaker, right? Yeah. Because as a consultant, you got to do things that kind of gets your money paid, that gets your bill paid. But at a conference speaker, people don't want to hear about old technologies. They only want to hear about the latest and the greatest technology. Yeah. Oh, servlet is so old school. I know all of this. Tell me what is happening in servlet.next or whatever that looks like. So I think that's always the case. So I hear you. I hear you and I agree. That is exactly what I've seen all along.
The coolest story, this is old ones, I can tell it. So the JAX conference in Germany?
I do.
And and there was a session like Enterprise Ruby on Rails or something. And after the session, I went to the speaker and asked, hey, do you have projects with Ruby actually? Because I never saw this in the wild. And he says, no, it's just fun. I do it on the weekends. During the week, I'm working on J2E. And I say, okay, but at least you have to say it. Otherwise, it's the impression that, J2E is dead and everyone does Ruby on Rails. And this was the funniest story ever, because awesome. Sometimes I was at conferences, I was listening, because I cannot believe they are actually using this. I never saw a German company using this, right? So, and then I asked them, like, no, it is not used in practice, but this is a great talk. I sell the talk at conferences. Like, okay, this is okay. At least say this, right? Because otherwise, yeah.
Well, and I think that is exactly what is highlighting our dichotomy that, if I give a talk on J2E, see, think about 2010, right? 2006, 7, 8 timeframe. If you want to give a talk about J2E versus Ruby on Rails, what is hotter? What is the likelihood that the program committee, I think the whole system in that sense, if I think about it, to be a bit cynical, is a bit rigged because the program committee want to select the latest papers. The conference organizers want to attract attendees. So, and the attendees also want to go to the conference to talk to these top-notch speakers with the latest topics because everything else is already available on the internet. So I think the whole system is a bit rigged in that sense with a bias towards later topics as opposed to like existing topics.
You're right. So, but we covered SunGrid, and after SunGrid, there was the Sun Cloud. There was another attempt, and what was really great about that, I don't know, you're aware about that for sure. It was briefly before Oracle bought Sun, so it was never released. But the APIs were available on internet. The RESTful, And they were great. They were great. Yeah. This was like, you could go and say, create a server. You got back the server and you can proceed with MySQL database. So I used that to explain RESTful on conferences. Say, look, there is a Sun REST API. It is really RESTful. If you ask me what is RESTful API, this is great. And I even have some screenshots because before they killed that, because it was absolutely stunning how well executed it was. And this was created by the XML guy who works now at Google. I forgot his name, but he invented XML and he was really into this.
Tim Bray.
Tim Bray did it.
Yeah. And I remember giving feedback to Tim about cloud.sun.com. That was the domain.
Exactly.
And the REST API and all. So I played with it. And that was, you're right, that was a very good way of showing up. And I remember putting up Wireshark in the picture. That let me show you what the actual wire dump looked like. Here is what the REST request looks like. So I think it was a very classic. So I think that kind of goes back to the pet peeve I was saying earlier. Sun had all these things figured out. It's always that last mile problem, the execution problem is what took us down. But hey, you know what? I had a great time, learned a lot of good technology, built a lot of lifelong friends over there. So no regrets at all.
Yeah. So you spent the time at with J2E then, and then GlassFish. Was it the same department or different? So, what would be interesting? So how you switched from Corba to J2E? So what happened internally?
So I was always part of the same team all along, pretty much, right? So I was always part of the J2EE Java EE team. And the way it was is the Corba functionality was built really in the J2EE team because that's where the primary consumer was. But then, over a period of time, we realized that Corba needs to move into the base JDK. So then we started working closely with the JDK team as well, and we started integrating over there. And over a period of time, that became more and more of a trend. So for example, I worked on JAX-B testing. JAX-B kind of moved into JDK as well. I worked on JAX-RS, so JAX-RS kind of moved in there. At one point, we had this JWSDP, Java Web Services Developer Pack. So I was leading the testing effort for that. And pretty much most of those technologies kind of got baked into JDK. So we would craft these technologies as packs or as in J2EE APIs. But over a period of time, we recognize that these APIs are a lot more heavily used by the other Java users as well. So it's not fair for, at that time, we used to have this Java SE, Java EE, and Java ME. So for Java SE folks to use those APIs, they have to do some crooked ways, either import those APIs or download the J2EE profile, whatever that needs to be done. So to simplify that entire process, we started integrating those APIs smack into J2SE itself, the Java SE platform itself. And that's sort of where we interacted very closely with the Java platform, that how we're going to make this work. And then whatever tests we would write, we would run those tests on the J2EE platform and the Java SE platform as well.
And then you switched to GlassFish team, right? Because this is where we met really. So at least because I use GlassFish a lot in all my projects, and I attended Java once. I think I started 2006, 2007, where I was able to speak. And this is also where you became, I think, the GlassFish evangelist, right?
I was. So I think I'm thinking about the timeline. Was it J2E 1.3, 1.4 timeframe? I think it's 1.4 timeframe when GlassFish became the reference implementation. And then Java
Before
E5,
that, I used the Sun Java reference implementation.
Exactly.
With the Swing app where you can deploy. Exactly.
Right.
And you were also who built that? Who built actually the first one? You were also it was your department.
Yeah. So I mean, I was part of. So when I joined back in March of '99, the alpha release of J2EE 1.2 happened in April. So I was part of the J2EE team from the very beginning itself. We did alpha, beta, and the GA release happened, I believe, in September, October at Java 1 that year in '99. So I was part of that entire release cycle. But initially, it was a closed source reference implementation. And around 2002-3 timeframe is when we took that entire closed source reference implementation to open source reference implementation. And that's when it became GlassFish. So that's where we had glassfish.dev.java.net. So that entire 2 to 3 year journey where we took GlassFish downloads from 0 to 5 million in 3 years. That's one. Second is changing that company culture that, hey, what does it mean to build a closed source app server versus an open source app server? Because closed source app server, you can have the water cooler discussions, but the teams were again spread across East Coast, West Coast. So Burlington was one big campus and Santa Clara was one big campus. And there were folks scattered all around the world as well. So how do you communicate across those people in a closed environment? But now think about doing this in an open environment. And open environment, people are literally all around the world. So building that open source culture is where I got excited about the broader open source mentality, thought process, culture part of it. And I never looked back. Now, I've always worked in open source, for over 20 years now. And I even wrote a book last couple of years ago, Fostering Open Source Culture. And a lot of my early lessons really come from the GlassFish days. And
the title is Fast Train Open Source, the title of the book.
No, the title of my book is Fostering Open Source Culture.
Fostering, okay.
Fostering Open. And in that book, basically, because after Sun, I've gone through a bunch of companies, Red Hat, Couchbase, Amazon,
but
Apple.
you've wrote another book, which was, I guess, far more popular, right? You know which book I mean?
Oh, the Minecraft one?
Yeah, exactly.
That one still sell copies. After 12 years, people still buy that. They love it. They love that copy, and that is indeed my most favorite book. Of the 7 books I've written, that book is very special to me because I wrote that book with my son.
And your son was the youngest speaker at Java 1, I guess.
He was. We wrote that book when he was 11 years of age. And the book was released when 11 years old. But at age 10, he gave a keynote at Java 1.
Exactly.
And he talked about when pigs fly. So,
exactly.
He showed flying pigs in Minecraft, and he coded that mod. And it was pretty awesome.
And they exploded. So what I remember, he said, we can, you can, tune the dynamite or whatever, and the explosion is bigger. For Java 1, back then was a big thing, such a thing, because it's more serious. Right now it is more loose, but back then it was actually amazing. So everyone loved that.
Yeah. No, and I think that's the energy that I've always tried to put in. How do we bring more kids to technology? How do we do more fun things with technology and enable younger kids? With now the way industry is evolving, anybody and everybody is able to kind of craft some fun applications. But back then, I'm talking about 10, 12 years ago, it was a different landscape where technology was not easily accessible, definitely not to kids. And that's when Stefan Janssen, the founder of DevOps, he started the DevOps for Kids. So I got that motion to US. And we ran, some 200 plus workshops across US, taught about 5,000 plus kids, on a variety of workshops, Minecraft modding, and that was primarily Java, Raspberry Pi, Python, all sorts of stuff, Sonic Pi, Ruby, all sorts of different languages we taught kids.
And Stefan was already on the podcast, and he's really crazy because he can do whatever he likes, but he still codes like crazy. This is what I admire, because the entire conference system is implemented by him, which kudos to him, because, he has the experience from the field and knows where the conference should go. So I think it's a really great idea or attitude.
And I think, absolutely. And I highly respect that thing about him. And I think that brings a lot of credibility to him because he knows what he's talking about. And the kind of conference he runs, as DevOps and other DevOpses, he could go deep into the technology with any of the speakers in that sense. So I think if money is no constraint and you can do a fun thing and you're still doing coding, that means you really love it.
Exactly. And it speaks also about your attitude, because, I don't like, to give up and buy whatever, an island or an yacht. And instead, I'm doing something and learn, still keep learning, even if I don't have to. So this is what I like, just keep learning.
I love it.
Yeah.
And this kind of goes back to the philosophy that Steve Jobs actually said, stay hungry, stay foolish.
Exactly.
So if you are not hungry, if you are not staying foolish, not asking the right questions, not having that genuine curiosity in your mind, learning stops happening. And then when learning stops happening, you stop growing.
And and fun ends, because I think to having fun, you need a challenge. Without a challenge, no fun.
As an athlete, I always talk about that the only time growth happens when you're uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And the uncomfortable feeling, you need to get comfortable with that.
Mm-hmm.
That it's okay to be uncomfortable, but then you ask around, you figure your way out, you talk to people, and then that's when the growth happens, because that's when you're learning new skill.
Yeah. And then if the uncomfortable becomes comfortable, you need the new uncomfortable. Otherwise,
always. Change is the only constant. Change is the only constant, period.
Yeah.
I was listening to a podcast, and I really, really connect with that. It says, keeping calmly, knowing change, 4 words. And it says, it summarizes the entire Buddhist philosophy, the monk philosophy. Keeping means you continue the work.
Mm-hmm.
Calmly means you accept it. Mm-hmm. No judgment. Knowing means it is happening.
Mm-hmm.
And change means change is the only constant. So keeping calmly, knowing change, because change is happening all around us, right? Mm-hmm. My baggage got delayed. My flight got delayed. I didn't have my right breakfast today, whatever, right? A lot of different things. Things show up 5 minutes late, 10 minutes late, an hour late. So how do you adapt to that change? And particularly if you contextualize it in the today's world, there are so many coding agents. One, every week there is a new coding agent coming up, and some other coding agent is getting better. Some other coding agent is slopping.
I have to re-invite you back to talk about more this stuff, because otherwise we will talk about 4 hours today, I suspect. This is
I agree. But but this is something close to my heart.
To my as well. So this is dangerous topic. So we should cover a bit. So what I'm just interesting was the J2E reference implementation, and then GlassFish happened. Yeah. And I remember the GlassFish 1 was not that usable, and then V2 happened, which was highly reusable, and there was a huge refactoring going on, and it was actually unbelievably good at that time. And what was good about GlassFish was the first time I saw something at Sun Microsystems, and this was the usability. So it came out of the box with great console, with built-in monitoring, which was way better than competitors. So this was actually the unique story about GlassFish. And how I was able to sell GlassFish, or sell, I never got anything from Sun, but to sell means to introduce GlassFish in projects, was how I introduced GlassFish and say, look, this is the reference implementation. It works great. This is open source. And if you like, you can still buy support. And this combination was unique, right?
And I think the time in which you were doing that, nobody had, that model was not prominent, that open source and a support. Now it's a very standard model.
Yeah.
But we're talking about 15 years ago. You're telling people that open source, free to download, free to try, no time bomb, but this becomes mission critical for you, and you need one throat to choke. You get that, with a minimal cost. And I think the scale is amazing. And I also remember, I think you mentioned a very important point here. From V1 to V2, if I remember correctly, the biggest change was OSGI. We made entire GlassFish modular.
This was V2 and V3. V3 was the OSGI. V1
was V3 was OSGI. Yeah.
And V3 was the jar, single jar. You had at conferences jar minus jar glassfish.jar, Java minus jar glassfish.jar, which back then was crazy. It's like Quarkus right now. So
exactly. So I think that OSGI was a game changer for us as well, because I remember every technology in the stack had to be OSGI compatible. We were starting to write the interfaces, and the beauty of that was, because it was OSGI, because it was modular, people could start writing their own modules on top of GlassFish and drop it into the directory. And if you're following the OSGI format, who was a guy? Neil Tyson? There's an OSGI guy.
Yeah. But he was not at Sun, right?
No, he was not at Sun.
Yeah.
But I was interacting with him quite a bit for the OSGI spec, essentially, that as we are writing this OSGI module, does it align? Does it not align? I myself wrote a bunch of, because as an evangelist, if you want to explain the OSGI architecture, you need to understand it. So I was understanding that architecture myself, writing blogs about it. And of course, he would comment on those blogs. So I remember writing a simple plugin for the GlassFish console that we talked about. And in that GlassFish console, essentially, I built a simple animation. As you are making request, I built a simple GlassFish that will float up and down the ocean, mimicking your request, how many number of requests that are being coming up. So I think it's, and even the console, the GlassFish backend has a REST API by which you can query and interact, what's going on. So that entire REST model, that entire API first model, that entire modular architecture was very unique back 15 years ago. And I had a lot of learning as part of that. So very, very grateful in that sense.
Mm-hmm. And then you left Oracle in one point of time. When was it?
That was about 2013 is when I left Oracle.
Mm-hmm. But you stay until 2013 with the GlassFish team, or?
Yeah. So pretty much 99 to 2013, I was part of the GlassFish team all along.
And you had a great blog. It's like Miles to Go, right? Was it?
I had a great blog, Miles to Go, and that is still my life's mantra in terms of miles to go. I like to run. I run pretty much 4 or 5 days a week.
Wow.
And this morning it's beautiful weather here in Amsterdam. I ran by Amstel Park, 10K run. Very good.
10K kilometers or 10K miles?
10 kilometers. Yeah, 10 kilometers. Yeah.
10 kilometers. Okay.
Yeah. It's a very manageable distance, gets you a little bit of the comfort zone. And I've been doing that for a while now.
Okay. So also good, to keep mind clear, right?
Oh my God. Yeah. I think for the longest time, I always start my day with a workout in the morning. And by that workout, it is, either a 10K run, ish run, or like a trail run in the weekend, or like a couple of lifting sessions a week. But you start your day with that, and that clears up your mind.
Mouse lifting or,
No. Well, this is a MacBook, so I only have a trackpad here. But I have a full power cage in my house. So I got a barbell and the whole shebang, the full setup in my garage. So a couple of days of that and the 4 or 5 days of running. And it keeps your mind clear, as you said, because during that time, I'm less thinking about work, but just staying in my own mind, because you need to be very present, particularly when you're lifting. Running is okay. Running, you can, is a more repetitive motion, but lifting, you got to really pay attention to your posture, to your focus, to your breathing. So you have to be really present in that moment. And what I've realized over the years is that mindfulness, because you start your day with a mindful activity, that mindfulness carries throughout the day in that sense.
Yeah, this is what I can imagine. Because, yeah. And what happened after Sun?
So after Sun, actually, during Sun time, Red Hat, at Sun we used to have GlassFish. At Red Hat had JBoss. So Red Hat had reached out to me a few times that, hey, Arun, join us. And then the third time when they reached out to me, they said, hey, you know what? We have made you offer multiple times. You have rejected every time. Why? Well, you're trying to buy a Ferrari for a Hyundai price. It doesn't work like that. So it's like, what do you want? What do you need? I said, I need a title. I need a salary. I need a scope. I need an impact. So I kind of gave them my requirements. A couple of days later, they came back with an offer letter. And they said, yeah, whatever you're doing for GlassFish, do that for JBoss. But then I got a team. So I ran a team for technical marketing for JBoss at Red Hat. So I spent about a couple of years over there driving that technical marketing developer advocacy efforts over there.
I forgot about that. I remember this because we also were in touch at Red Hat, and JBoss champions send me stickers and whatever. I still have them. It's fun.
That's right. That's right.
And
that's the time that you and I recorded that Docker video.
Okay.
During my Red Hat time. Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. Because I did microservices all the time. And what I found out is that the application servers are actually great because the platform doesn't change. So I had a base layer with application server, and what I deployed was just the wars. And he told me, application servers is like maybe they work, maybe don't. It's like, hey, Arun, I have to show you this. And then we recorded a video where I showed you this and said, oh my God, this works actually. And
And I think the beauty of, at that time, if you think about it, we were deploying wars and we were encapsulating the wars, as a microservice and making those wars really talk to each other. But then the beauty of it was the moment you got to Docker, it allowed you to try out different languages. So you could still use, and by that time we had a lightweight Java EE reference implementation that could be baked into the Docker container itself. So you have a very self-contained microservice in a Docker container, and it doesn't matter whether you're using a war or a year or whatever you are using or a different language altogether, because the new encapsulation layer was Docker in that case.
I'm just curious. After Red Hat, you were at Intel, right?
No, gosh, there was a long journey after that. So after Red Hat, I spent about 18 months at Couchbase. Then I spent a few years at Amazon. Then a couple of years at Apple.
You were at the Corretto team.
I was. I actually launched Corretto. So there was an engineering team. I mean, by the time I joined Amazon, the idea was, hey, we're building a Kubernetes service. So I made Amazon join CNCF. So that happened. That was pretty exciting. And then my next gig was, okay, hey, we're going to launch Corretto. And you are a Java champion. You know the Java folks really well.
Who came up with the name Corretto? Was your idea?
We had a deeper discussion. We had a lot of naming is one of the hardest problems in computer science, right? So we had a deeper discussion. All of us gave our suggestions. And then we kind of figured out, what that name is going to look like. I think it was Yishai and I who were going back and forth. Yishai was the engineering manager at that point of time. We went back and forth multiple times on what that name is going to look like, what the legal is going to approve. Finally, we got that name approved. And I remember 2018 or 2019. 2019 is when we went to Devoxx Belgium. I think that's the time James Gosling was also at Amazon. So we took James Gosling with us to Devoxx Belgium and let him announce Amazon Corretto at Devoxx.
Yeah.
So I remember James getting up there on the stage. We hid him through the back door. We got him into the Devoxx keynote, surprise entry. And then he gets up onto the stage. He's wearing a Corretto shirt. He takes his jacket off. I am the father of Java, and I am announcing Corretto. It's a lot of fun around that. We built a lot of good community around it.
What I remember is, as you joined AWS, I asked you, what's wrong with you? So you had a great things with Java, and now you're in AWS, and you told me, because we are creating Java at AWS. Okay, that's cool. And I asked you, what's Corretto? And you told me, I remember, it's like coffee with liquor or something like this, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, cool name.
I remember that. I completely forgot about that, but now you're reminding me. That is exactly what Corretto is. It's coffee with liquor.
Yeah. And what you did at AWS? You exactly. So I mean, it was like marketing around Corretto.
No. So AWS, I was a principal open source technologist. This is going back to 2017 days when AWS did not know how to do open source at all. So when I joined Amazon, they were saying, hey, we launched Kubernetes. I said, oh, that's great. But how do you contribute to Kubernetes? Why do we contribute to Kubernetes kind of thing? Why do we need to? So kind of building that open source muscle that, no, you must join CNCF and things like that. And similarly, when we're launching Corretto, how do we engage with the community? How do we do that? I mean, Amazon is a big player, was a big player, still a big player. How do you walk into the community in a humble way, connected way, grounded way? So as a principal open source technologist, I was on loan to multiple service teams across the company and crafting their open source strategies on how do you engage with community, how do you reach out to developers, which conferences where you go out to. So I think it was more of a very community-centric role, but very open source-centric role too. So that's why the title was very appropriate, Principal Open Source Technologist.
Okay, I can imagine hard job, right? Because this was, I think, not a fun.
Not a fun, but I think I really enjoyed it. You know, if it's we were talking about this earlier, right? Growth only happens when you are uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So really, I had to apply all my open source knowledge together and make Amazon a better open source citizen. And you can see today in all the work that has been done, not just by me, but many people after me, on how Amazon is a little bit better respected in the open source space. So I think I'm excited and proud of that work.
Yeah, they are not it from outside. No one believes AWS does open source, but if they contribute to the project, they do it right. So actually, then I took a look, and they do crazy stuff like Lucene. They contribute to Lucene. And had a talk, with the Lucene people. It's like, this is actually great. They behaved as a really good citizens, which is, so this is actually how they contribute is good. And I'd also have had a chat, with some people at AWS. It's like, okay, we would like to contribute, but if we contribute, we would like to do it right. This is the thing. So sometimes they say, we have no idea how to do it right now, but if we do it right, which is a great attitude, actually, right? So this is
because one of the things that Amazon really lives by is leadership principles. And one of the leadership principles is customer obsession. So even if they are contributing to a project, not for the fun of it, but because customers want it to work at Amazon scale, so they would contribute features that aligns the project on how you can run it in a scalable manner as an AWS service, because those scalability concerns are massive. Imagine running an open source project as an AWS service, the kind of operational details that you need. And yes, there is a control plane, but then the data plane is where the open source project is running. So how do you make that? How do you create the abstraction in the data plane so that control plane can tap into that, or the touch points that they would usually build? But more recently, they have started owning features, which is great because that's the right way, as you said. Chop wood, carry water. You cannot be just exclusively doing stuff that is very selfish to you, but overall lifting and elevating the overall project too.
And I don't know whether you're aware of, but the Amazon Corretto was at least the most popular JDK, openJDK distribution on Earth. Recently.
I remember that. I know very well about that because I've stayed in touch with the Corretto team. And the reason I know that is because after Amazon, I went and worked for Apple. And at Apple...
This is even more interesting what you did at Apple.
Quite exciting. So at Apple, they brought me in to craft their open source strategy. So I founded their open source program office. And in addition to that, one of the teams I was managing was the Apple JDK team. So Apple does not contribute to openJDK. So they would fork it and they would maintain it internally.
What is the name of the JDK internal?
Apple JDK.
Apple JDK, okay.
Apple JDK, very simple.
Okay.
So I managed that team and we would work with our stakeholders across the company, whether it's Apple Music, whether it's Siri. My blinds are coming down. So
no problem.
No matter what team it is, they were using Apple JDK. And in that case, we were able to provide them the Apple JDK releases on a regular cadence so that they could be more effective.
So is Java used a lot inside Apple?
All over. All over.
Really?
So, I mean, on your phone, any of the services that you see, they're most likely using a Java backend.
Yes, it's crazy, actually.
Yeah. It is crazy. And Java is running at a massive scale. So, I mean, I've heard that news that Java is dead. This is exaggerated. I've heard that for the last 30 years.
Yeah.
And Java is very much prominent and thriving in the enterprise.
Yeah. So after Apple, were you successful at Apple or kind of successful? Or
I would say I like working with external communities. I like being visible in the community. And Apple has a different culture where they do not, or they hold you back in terms of a lot of external engagements that you want to do, because they say you come to Apple to do the best work for Apple. Within Apple, you can thrive really well, but it did not align very well with my own aspirations. Because for me, I really thrive on interacting with people outside the company, inside the company, connecting both of them likewise. So that's the beauty that I really enjoyed. But within a couple of years, it was quite evident that it's not going to work out very well. So in the meanwhile, Intel reached out and they said, yeah, come work for us. I said, this is awesome, actually. So, and Intel is a company that I've always respected for doing open source contributions.
There were also a lot of Java 1 appearances always, that always Java 1 keynotes and how they integrate with Java optimizations. So they were actually integral part of Java ecosystem always.
Exactly. So I think with a high respect for entire company for open source contribution, I joined there as a VP of open ecosystem and really building that entire developer marketing function over there. So when I left, I was leading a large team of developer marketing across Intel for software part of it. And that was quite exciting.
And you were a similar story. You tried to foster open source a little bit more, less technical, more like marketing, right?
No, actually, the open source culture was already quite prevalent across the company. For me, it was more about, are we joining the right foundations? What are we getting out of the foundation? Okay. Are we showing up at the right events?
Strategist.
Are we doing... very strategical role. Are we doing the right enablement workshop? Things like that. And if somebody does not understand the value of open source, how do we educate them? How do we enable them? Working a lot with academia. So all across the company, that was the standard function that my team was capable of.
And then you joined JetBrains, right?
Well, so July 31st was my last day at Intel because they decided they don't want to do anything to do with software. So most of the software team was let go. And July 31st was my last day. I was very fortunate, very, very blessed, very, very grateful on how JetBrains found me for this job. So I joined JetBrains October 1st, just a 2 months gap. And October 1st, I started at JetBrains as a VP of Developer Experience. So now I've been here for over 5 months. And it's pretty exciting because JetBrains is a strategic point at this point of their life. They are a 26-year-old company now. They do developer tools, pick a language, pick a stack. They support it, and developers love it. We got about 300,000 plus customers, 15 million monthly active users. And my job is for all the IDEs, define their developer experience. And as part of that, I have multiple functions in my team, whether it's product marketing, developer advocacy, relationship with academy, enterprise growth, working with sales quite actively, or community marketing and partnership marketing, where we are working with our different partners and community members, community influencers on how do we make that successful for us. So it's a very exciting role, very large charter, and I take that very responsibly and very actively.
What we should do, I should re-invite you back after you are a JetBrains senior, so after a few weeks, months, or whatever, and to talk a little bit deep about, whatever tools JetBrains has, just freestyle JetBrains conversation.
We can
from
do that.
You, just from Java perspective, of course. And
totally.
Now you asked me, we had a 2-sentence preparation before the show, and you asked me, what I am doing, and just a short story because I found something interesting. And so I stick with standards because I was lazy, maybe, or to learn stuff which will probably die. So, okay, if I focus on whatever standards there is, the stability, then I can do more fun stuff because, the standards are boring anyway. So whether I use this dependency injection or CDI, I focus on CDI because everyone uses CDI. And I was lucky with Quarkus because Quarkus is hugely popular and Quarkus is used a lot, also in serverless. So I did a lot of work on AWS with Quarkus serverless, and basically it was the same programming model like GlassFish. I did actually fun talks. I was maybe you ever spoke at Cluj in Romania, Java user group?
I've spoken there once.
Yeah. I was also there, and I wanted to hack something on stage with, I think, JBoss or GlassFish about Draculas, and they told me they hate Draculas. Just go liquor store. So I remember, all the Romanian liquors like Zuica, and this is what I remember because it is the first letter is T. And I found that recently, and I migrated it to Quarkus, and it still runs. So this is the amazing story. And this is what my clients love it, because you can pick an old J2E system and modernize it and everyone is surprised how fast it goes. But this is not what I found something else. What Sun did back then, the strategy was vendor neutrality or product independence. So you can focus on the API, right?
Right.
They can swap the implementations.
Yeah.
And in order to achieve that, you are aware of it. There were JSRs, Java specification requests, which was the spec. There was the TCK, and there was the reference implementation. And everything was supposed to be open source. TCK not so, now it is, but back then not open source. But everything else was open source. And the specs like JAX-RS, if you open JAX-RS spec, they are normative. It means they are written in very specific way. They are almost mathematic way, shall, must not, must, and so forth, right? And the interesting part is, because everything was open and is publicly available, LLMs know it by heart. So we missed each other at Focus. This is what talk I delivered at JFocus. High-speed Java development, it means if you know the words, the patterns from back then, you can have a 3-word prompt and it generates great Java API which runs on Quarkus. Right. Why that is? Because the LLMs love normative APIs, and if they know it, there are no hallucinations. So actually, I've worked a lot with the right now, and I showed. Usually I try to do a presentation without slides, but it doesn't work, because if I show the audience how it works, I say what you are doing is impossible, because how it can be. It's like, because Java is open source and LLMs are data hungry, so pick whatever LLMs you have and it will generate perfect code. So it means with Java and standards are back in the game.
Right.
Now, what I'm doing on top of the LLMs, because you mentioned agents, and I didn't want it to tell you this, because we were spoken for hours. And what I do is, with a small skill on top of, or AGENTS.md, on top of the usual agents, you can achieve remarkable stuff, because you can just say, okay, only generate 3 tests, not 20. Write Java doc, meaningful Java doc, and please do not comment any getters and setters. Actually, what I preached for years, and with that, we have the unique opportunity to generate or to create better code faster than ever.
Right.
And the code is highly maintainable. And what I'm trying right now is that the code is so good in Java, it encodes all the semantics that you can open it with whatever LLM you have, and you don't need any skills, no CloudMD, nothing. It just gets you what are your intentions.
Yeah.
And this works beautifully. It means I think Java, if it is widely recognized, should become even more popular, because this is a unique features of Java. I'm not aware of any other platform with open specifications which were written in that way. Not even .NET. They don't have it. And if you know the knowledge from the past, you can create extremely well written APIs which are highly maintainable with focus on business. And this is what I'm working on right now.
We can talk about hours on this. I believe you. Adam, I got to run for my next meeting. Yeah. But boy, this has been an exciting conversation. I will definitely.
Where people can find you?
Oh, they can find me LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the easiest place. I sometimes hang out on X/Twitter. So Arun Gupta, one word. Shoot me a mail if you want to talk to me, arun.gupta@jetbrains.com. Plus arun.gupta@gmail.com, whatever works. So I'm easily accessible. I respond to messages. I'm on a bunch of community Slack channels as well. Arun Gupta, one word. So find me there. Lots of ways you can reach out to me.
Super cool. And see you next time we talk about JetBrains.
We will. Awesome. Thank you so much. Take care. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.